So I'm a professor of neuroscience. I have 10 minutes to tell you how the brain works and why the brain is the biggest barrier to digital, okay? And also what the big idea is, what you can actually do given what we know about the brain. So all of you here are about, so I've got 10 minutes, okay. So all of you are about trying to get people to see differently in one way or another, right? And what is the heart of seeing differently? It's actually perception. Okay, perception underpins everything we know, we believe, our hopes, our dreams, the clothes we wear, people we fall in love with. Everything begins with perception. So to understand perception is not only to understand how the brain works, it's to understand what it is to be human. Okay? So my aim for this, it's always the same aim I have, which is I want you to know less at the end than you think you know now. Okay? And I always succeed. And the reason is, nothing interesting begins without doubt. Nothing interesting begins with knowing. It begins with not knowing. And I want you to doubt at the most fundamental level. So how many people here think you see the world as it really is? Anyone see the world as it really is? If you're not seeing the world as it really is, we have one literalist, right? If you're not seeing the world as it really is, what are you seeing? Right? Your perception, but your perception of what? Is it accurate? For you, it's accurate. Well, okay, let's do a test. How many can see the predator that's about to jump out at you? And if you haven't seen it yet, you're dead. Well, actually you are. Right? Who thinks they can see it? Anyone? So 90% of the information your brain uses to see comes from lightness. Let's just add 10% of the information. Can you see it now? Yes? Who maybe shouldn't be here? There it is. All right? So if we go back, you can see it was always there, staring right at you. All right? So this is a fairly complex scene. What about something as simple as lightness? Right? Even jellyfish see lightness and don't even have a brain. Right? So maybe at this level, we see the world as it really is. So how many see this as the one on the left circle looks lighter than the one on the right? Yes? That's your perceptual reality. Right? That's what you're seeing. What happens if we just change the context, but we just don't change those squares at all, those circles at all? Do they now look the same? Yes? That's the actual physical reality, and that's your perceptual reality. Right? This makes a very fundamental point about how your brain works, is that context is everything. Your brain did not evolve to see the world as it really is. It can't. It's pointless. In fact, information for your brain is completely meaningless because it could mean anything. Right? Your brain evolved to see something else. And the answer to that question has to do with why context is everything, which is that your brain evolved to make meaning by physically engaging with the world. Right? So in my lab, we also grow brain cells. And what's remarkable is that the growth of these brain cells is directly related to how active you are. Right? The factors that promote cell growth increase if your brain activity is also increased. Right? So, give you an example. 2 kittens, eyes recently open, one running on the ground, perfectly fine, another one in a basket, suspended in air. This has actually happened in the 1970s. Wherever the one on the ground goes, the one in the basket also goes. The point is they have the exact same visual experience of the world. And after 2 weeks, you test the vision of the one on the ground, it sees perfectly fine. But what about the one in the basket? What does it see? It's blind. Right? It's literally blind. Its eyes are fine, its cortex is fine, but it's never been able to physically interact with the world and make meaning from meaningless information. Right? Our brain did not evolve to passively receive content that's broadcast to us and make meaning from it. It doesn't care. Right? In fact, if you raise rats in an enriched environment, with lots of toys, lots of social interaction, you look at their cells, that's what they look like on the right. But rats raised in a deprived environment with very few other rats, very few social interactions, that's what their brain cells look like on the left. Right? So your brain evolved to match the complexity of its world, and it makes meaning by physically interacting with it. Right? So to give you an example, I want you to stare at that dot between the red and the green, but notice first that the desert scenes look exactly the same. One's just a flipping of the other. But stare at that dot, and don't look anywhere else. We're going to look at it for about 30 seconds. Right? Don't look anywhere else. And while you're looking, I'm going to tell you what's happening inside your brain. Your brain is learning that the left side of its visual field is under green light, and the right side is under red light. That's becoming its new reality, which means everything you see as a consequence of this history will be a reflection of that interaction. Right? Keep looking at that dot. When I tell you to, I want you to look at the dot between the desert scenes, but not yet. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Look there. Do they still look the same? Yes or no? No. And as you look around, they'll still start going back to a new normal, right? Your brain evolved to continually redefine normality. So what do you see when you open your eyes? You don't see the world. It's impossible. You don't see information because it's meaningless. What you see is a meaning that's grounded in your history of what was useful in the past. That's what you always see, right? So when you look at this cube, this is an illusion I made many years ago, you notice a dark brown tile at the top and a light orange tile at the side. That is your perceptual reality. You're seeing the meaning of the information. But if I change the meaning by removing the context, you can see the tiles are actually physically the same, right? These two tables are the same, right? Agreed? Yes? The red table is simply the green table on its side. They have the exact same dimensions. Okay? It's because the only thing that differs is the angles at the corner. You're seeing the meaning of the information, but not the information itself. And this is true even of our perception of other systems, of other animals, of other people, right?
Alan! Al! Alan!
No, I don't think you hear me, you know.
Alan! 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 Al! Alan! 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 Alan!
Oh, that's not Alan. Steve, Steve.
Steve! 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 Steve!
Oh, no, that's not Steve. That is Alan.
Alan! Alan! Al!
You can hear him thinking, yes? Our perception of him completely changes, which means when it comes to perception, right, which is the most fundamental thing that your brain does, we're just like this frog, right? This is virtuality for a frog. It's getting information and generating behavior that's useful, right? Just like us. I love that. We are so like that frog, right? Now, some of you are thinking, no, I'm not a frog, right? They might be, I'm not a frog, right? Well, we're going to test how much free will you have, right? I'm going to show you two shapes, random shapes. These aren't circles, diamonds, or triangles, right? They have no name. Agreed? Right? Now I'm going to give you two words. First one's Kiki. The second one's boo-boo. Right? Now, you independent, free-thinking people, tell me, which of these shapes which has no name is Kiki, and which of these shapes is boo-boo? So how many people say that one's Kiki, and that one's boo-boo? Yeah, 98% of the population around the world, right? This has everything to do with your assumption of pain. You don't know why you're making this decision, right? In fact, almost everything we do, we don't necessarily know why we do, which is why questionnaires, marketing questionnaires don't work. Right? This has everything to do with your perception of pain. So if I give you the word love and hate, how many of you say that that one's hate and the one on the right is love? Yes? Depending on the state of your relationship. Okay? It has to do with things, it has to do with your perception of pain. Right? So this creates a fundamental challenge for digital. Your brain did not evolve to see the world as it is. It doesn't passively receive content and information. It has to actively engage with content in the real world with people you care about, which is why technologies, social technologies like Facebook and Twitter are not actually social. They don't engage the brain in the way it needs to be engaged in the social, right? It actually decreases human relationship. So how can we actually get digital to get people to re-engage with the world and re-engage with other people again? And to answer that question is to what I call be in the space between. That's where your brain lives, right? It makes meaning by physically interacting. That's where meaning arises. So on the back of that, we created a new platform, which we call Traces. Okay? And the idea of Traces is that you can actually leave digital content of any description, video, image, sound, even money transfers, right, floating in the real world. And people experience it in a virtual drop of water. They get their phone out, and through augmented reality, they see these drops of water floating in the world. And they grab these drops of water, and inside that is the content. So you can imagine this being music, and as you hold it up, you can have a virtual speaker floating over the top of you. And you can hear music wherever you go, right? Or this could be a trigger for a money transfer in a pub. The person has to go there, they see the drop floating, they grab it, and that triggers the money transfer. Or it could be a video, right? Or it could be a memory that you left somewhere. And this actually exists. We've just come out of beta, and these actually float around. There are some floating around here, right? We're working with Universal Music as far as floating music and location, or coupons, etc. And when we've done this, we've actually shown that it increases people's perceived happiness and sense of well-being and empathy towards other people. Because if I'm sending you to a location, I have to think about why I'm doing that. And also, when we left music, people found that they perceive the music to be 20% better. Because if your brain puts an effort into something, it perceives that something to have higher value. It's called the IKEA effect, right? And finally, we have one just coming out at the end of this week called Frenzy. Whereas the drop of water, instead of leaving it in the world, you are the location. And it follows you wherever you go. So you can take an emoji, your personality, and put it inside the drop of water. So everyone here could have a drop of water floating over them, right? And I could see and I can grab it and start interacting. Okay. So these are a couple of things that they asked me to talk about. And I wanted to give you a sense that this is coming from neuroscience and enabling people to re-engage with each other in a more meaningful way. So thanks a lot. Hope that was interesting.
So,